2 years ago, I spent hours every single day wasting my time on TikTok. Now my screen time is 30 minutes a day, and I spend none of that time on the platform. So in this video, I want to teach you 3 important lessons that help me understand the platform TikTok and ultimately get off it. A few years ago, I was a normal 14-year-old kid. I went to school, I wanted to get good grades, I wanted to fit in with my social circle, I wanted to climb the popularity ladder, I wanted to get girls, all the usual stuff, right? I did some sports, I did some football in particular, which is popular here in Sweden. And I wanted to, be the sort of high status, respected guy in the social circle. That was my main objective at this time. But in late 2022, I discovered the concept of self-improvement, of becoming the best version of myself. People like Andrew Tate and David Goggins popped off at this time, and their message really resonated with me. And I learned that one of the most destructive things we can do is simply to waste our time on social media. And I was scrolling heavily at this time, that was how I, discovered these people. And for me, it felt kind of productive, because at the end of the day, my For You page on TikTok was all aligned to my new sort of interest, which was this sort of gym, hard, disciplined, masculine culture. And so I continued doing it. But I did implement some of the habits. Like, for example, I started going to the gym at this time. I started taking cold showers, like cold exposure. I started doing a bit of boxing. I started trying to do some side hustles and stuff like that. So I was really ambitious, this sort of fire inside of me was lit. But at the same time, I had some handbrakes on my success as well. And one of the big ones was that I was scrolling on TikTok for hours every single day. And it really felt like productive scrolling for me, because I would see all these edits of these cool looking guys, of Patrick Bateman, the movie guys, the Brad Pitt, the fucking Tyler Durden or whatever from Fight Club. I'd see the edits of those guys, and I really thought that it was a productive thing. Though as time went on, deep inside I knew that I was fucking wasting my time. And the more I learned about this stuff, the more I realized that this is you don't learn shit from shorts. It's just not how you do it. And so I started feeling more drained as I kept scrolling. I started feeling less motivated. I became a fucking procrastinator. My grade started dropping at this time. Not only because of the sort of the TikTok thing that took all of my energy, not all, but a lot of my energy. I realized that school was a scam, so my motivation for school dropped because of that as well. But a big part of it was because I just couldn't get myself to do the work. Even if I had to do some sort of assignment, even if I thought it was, this is useless, I still had to do it because my parents still, I was a fucking 14, 15-year-old kid. I couldn't, my parents, they basically legally decided what I had to do, and so I still had to do some schoolwork and stuff, and it would have been advantageous for me to get good grades so that so my parents basically gave me their support in whatever I wanted to do. But I became a fucking procrastinator. I would literally study for the exam the same day or the night before, let's say, every single time. I would procrastinate it all the time. And especially in my in the sort of school that I was in, this was very much sort of not promoted, but it was very easy to do it because of the whole system. I won't get into that really, but basically I had a lot of free time in school that I could do whatever I wanted with. And I was such a procrastinator because I'd been scrolling so much, and my attention span and all that shit was fucked up, so I couldn't get myself to do it. And I had a lot of I procrastinated from the gym. I'd come home at 4 p.m. after school, and I'd be like, oh man, I'm fucking tired, I just want something comfortable, I just want some snacks or some bullshit like that. And I'd lay on the couch and I'd start scrolling, because obviously I wouldn't say these things to myself, they'd be subconscious inside of me, but they would manifest and they would happen. And then when it was time to go to the gym at 6 p.m. or something, or after dinner, I said to myself all right, I'm gonna go after dinner. Fucking procrastinating shit. But then when it was time to go to the gym, my motivation was sapped because all of my energy was drained from all this scrolling, and I was just tired and lethargic. I wanted to lie down. And so it really affected me at this time. And I also started spending less and less time with my friends outdoors. I had a quite big group of guys that I would hang out with in school, they weren't necessarily like on this path like of self-improvement, of like they laughed at, for example, Andrew Tate's messages, shit like that. They laughed at me for believing in it, but I still hung out with them, right? And we would often go to a little local football pitch, like in sort of in the neighborhood, and we'd play football and stuff. But I became less and less active with that during this time, and I spent more and more time indoors by myself, just doom scrolling away my time, you know. So it was yeah, man, it was super destructive for me. But what happened was that I found some educational creators online that was on not TikTok but YouTube. So instead of scrolling through brain rot content, just entertainment, you know, useless, shallow, empty content, I found some guys on YouTube with a long form content that was like educational content, and gradually I started transitioning from this hyper stimulating short form content to long form educational content on YouTube specifically. And I learned a lot specifically about TikTok as a platform and how it works. And one of the main key things that it did was that it fucked up your dopamine levels, which is basically your motivation. It saps your ability to have a good attention span. You get all these bullshit thoughts that just pop up throughout your day. Your shower thoughts are contaminated, a bunch of these things. And I realized that I wasn't learning anything from short form content, and yeah, I realized that I had to stop. You know, it sort of, I always knew this intrinsically, but when I found the people that explained this to me in sort of terms that I kind of could understand, like when you scroll, you spike your dopamine, your motivation, you get a lot of motivation to keep going, it's really pleasurable. But then when you stop scrolling and it's time to do another activity, the dopamine levels, your motivation levels, they plummet below the baseline, so that your motivation is sapped and you don't want to go to the gym, for example, you don't want to do the studying, that kind of stuff. So I want to pass that on to you as well through these videos. And so I became aware of the dangers of how it fucks up so many people, how it has caught so many of, especially people in the Western world. I'll get into that later. And so I started curing my addiction, and I realized that I was meant for more than this fucking shit, to waste hours of my life every single day on this bullshit platform that only fucks up your internal state and gives you some little bit of reward, some like a little mouse or some shit. You give the mouse a little piece of cheese and it'll do the thing again. So I realized that I was meant for more and that this shit had to stop. And by the way, if you want to learn more about this stuff, I'm actually currently making like a full-fledged massive program covering all the steps that I used to actually quit doom scrolling on TikTok. And it's called No Scroll Protocol, like, you know, no fap, but then I thought no scroll was a fitting word. So No Scroll Protocol, I'm making a massive program right now, and it's a paid program. You know, I'm gonna put in a lot of effort to make it exceptional. So if you wanna lock in like a 50% discount while I'm making the course, like the whole program, you can check out the link in the description, because it's on a pre-sale right now, and the price is gonna double when I've finished making the course and it's all done. So you can go do that right now if you want to. Now I want to get into the specifics of the things that I learned about TikTok and about the platform during this period that gave me such a better understanding about how to quit it, and yeah, really how the platform works and how it affects you. So the first thing that I mentioned was that it fucks up your dopamine level. So you've probably heard about the term dopamine quite a lot recently, or like the past 2 years. People like Andrew Huberman and Hamza Ahmed have popped off a lot, and yeah, this term has gone quite viral. And you probably heard about dopamine hits that you get, like when you do a thing that rewards you, that feels good, you get a sort of dopamine hit. But what actually happens is that, like, dopamine is not actually the pleasure, it's not actually the reward, the good feeling. It is the hunt, it is the pursuit, it is the motivation, it is the drive, it is the wanting to keep going. So what happens when we scroll on TikTok is that we see a video, we get rewarded because we get some sort of, you know, information, we get some fucking feeling of social connection, we get rewarded from scrolling, you know, and then we get motivation to keep doing it. So we scroll on to the next one, we get a new reward, and then our brain gives us a signal of motivation to keep going because it's so pain-free to do it. Like if every time you scroll on TikTok, every time you went to the next video, you had to do fucking 10 push-ups or 50 push-ups or some shit, you just had to, and your brain knew that, your brain would not be so like motivated to keep going. You know, you would not be stuck in these endless cycles of doom scrolling, obviously not. So it fucks up your dopamine levels. When you scroll, you get all these surges, these fucking waves, these big hits of dopamine over and over and over again, and it stimulates you to the point that your dopamine spikes. Like you get a huge wave of dopamine. It rises up significantly. If we want to quantify it, like we can just imagine that we have a currency for dopamine, and let's say we have 10 dopamine or something, 100 dopamine, and then when we spike our dopamine through scrolling, we spike our motivation. We get so motivated to keep going. We're in this flow state. You know, you lose track of time because you're so in the moment. You're so consumed by these fucking videos. So you keep scrolling and you spike your dopamine, and you go up to 200 dopamine points, 500 dopamine points. Like your normal baseline is just like this, you know, you're pretty chill. But then when you're at the climax of scrolling, you're getting all these new insights. You're feeling like you're like meeting all these people and stuff, because that's what you're doing to your caveman brain. You're simulating a social interaction. So when you do all of this and you spike your dopamine levels to 300 or whatever, what happens then is that your brain gets accustomed to that level. So it stops producing like dopamine naturally, really. So that's kind of how our brains are wired. When we get a lot of one thing or less of it, we get accustomed to it, we get used to it, and our brain adapts, because we're like, humans are meant to adapt to their environment. That's how we're able to survive, evolution, and all that kind of stuff. So when we scroll and our dopamine levels spike, that becomes our brain stops producing normal healthy dopamine, because we have an excess of this. We're thinking, holy shit, we got so much of this shit, we don't need it anymore. It's kind of like when you take anabolic steroids and your body stops producing testosterone naturally, because you're like, holy shit, like your body's like, holy shit, we got so much of this fucking shit, we got so much testosterone, we don't need to produce more, right? We got an excess of it, we got more than we need. And with dopamine, it's the same thing. But here's the key point: when you stop doing the thing that is spiking your dopamine levels, when you go back to a normal activity that is not dopaminergic, your baseline, or rather your dopamine levels, plummet. Like, they go down significantly, and they go down below the original baseline. So in the beginning it was 100 dopamine points, then it went up to 300, but now it's gone down to 90, for example, and now we have less motivation to do other things. Remember, dopamine is motivation, so it might even have gone down to 80 or 50, depending on how much and how, like, the severity of your scrolling. If you scroll for 8 hours straight, you might be at 20 dopamine points. You might be like totally drained. You can't even do a single thing. You can't even fucking get up and eat food or brush your teeth or some shit like that. So TikTok, it really fucks up your dopamine levels, and what this does is that it saps your motivation, not only for the normal activities that you do throughout your day, like going to the gym, studying, let's say you're working on a business, side hustle, that kind of stuff. Maybe you're doing martial arts, maybe you're doing some other sport, maybe you just want to hang out with your friends. It saps your motivation to do those things. And it's kind of like, you need a certain amount of dopamine points, a certain amount of motivation points to engage in certain activities. Like, if let's say the threshold is 80 dopamine points to go to the gym today. If you do not have 80 dopamine points, you're just gonna feel like mentally incapable of doing it. You're just gonna feel like, nah man, I'll do it after dinner, and then you won't do it. You'll procrastinate. Like, this is how procrastination works. You have this sort of like just convincing feeling that you're not really capable of doing it right now. And that's because your dopamine levels are so fucked, you know. Because if you had 300 dopamine points, you'd think going to the gym was like, holy shit, this is so fun. But now it's so much of a fucking burden. It's so hard. You can't bring yourself to do it. And that's how procrastination works. And so TikTok, it really fucks up your dopamine levels on a fundamental level. But also, it's not only that you stop getting motivation for the activity that you're going to do, like going to the gym, for example, or studying. It is also for the result. And this is a key point. This is a big hitter, right? I want you to pay attention. So it's not just that you stop wanting to do the thing, you stop wanting to get the thing, which is the reward of the thing. So with going to the gym, it's the physique, right? With studying, it's the grades. With the business work, it is the money. with the martial arts, it is the wins, like fights, you know. So you stop desiring those things, which is such a horrible feeling to have. Like, if you've ever experienced like a rut where you're just indulging in a bunch of bad habits, you're scrolling for hours and hours and hours every single day, you can't even like, you can barely motivate yourself, or even like you can barely think and desire the ultimate reward, the ultimate outcome, which is like, it's such that, like, that's how depression works, right? You don't have any hope, you don't see light at the end of the tunnel, and it's really insidious, man. So TikTok, it fucks up your dopamine levels, so you stop desiring the activity and also the outcome, and that also just means that you stop desiring the activity even more, you know. Because why, if there was if you weren't convinced that you would build a 10 out of 10 physique eventually, if you kept going to the gym, then there would be no point to going to the gym, right? So that's kind of how dopamine works in terms of TikTok. And when you overstimulate yourself like this, when you constantly give yourself all these hyper stimulating rewards, all these videos that are absolutely like just destructive for you, it's like, and you fuck up your dopamine levels, it also it stops you from being able to enjoy little things. It saps your enjoyment of life. Like, I can sit here in the forest and look at the sunrise, look at the trees, and hear the birds chirping, and hear the rumbling from the big highway that way. I can sit here and just be appreciative of the present moment. I can be grateful. I can sit here and just be by myself and be absolutely fine, just sitting with my own thoughts. But when your dopamine levels are also fucked, then you can't really do that, because it's not enough. It's not stimulating enough for your brain. Your brain just wants to get back to the thing that it knows it can get immediate, quick, fast, risk-free, pain-free reward, which is scrolling on TikTok in this case. So, and it's so vicious, because the more you do it, the more you fuck up your dopamine levels, and the more your brain sort of craves the thing, because nothing else is stimulating enough for it. You know, so it's really insidious, and it's like, this is how depression is simply low dopamine levels. When you don't have any motivation for life, and I'm not talking about like motivation just for the activity, because then you can use discipline for that, you know. Motivation is obviously going to be fleeting, is going to be fluctuating in general, but I'm talking about the motivation for life, for achieving great things, for having the balls to make big and, you know, create big goals and have big expectations of the future and have big hopes and desires and dreams. When your dopamine levels are all screwed and you have overstimulated yourself, you lack the ability to do that, which is why it's so destructive. And then also what TikTok does is that it fucks up your attention span. So when we scroll on TikTok, we change contexts every few seconds, right? We go onto the TikTok app, we scroll, we get a video that we watch, they're talking about something, and then we scroll to the next one, and our brain shifts its focus to another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. And your brain is all like this. It goes like a fucking pigeon, you know? So what happens is that you train your brain to focus on a lot of different things in short time frames instead of one thing over a longer period of time. And if you have achieved some sort of outcome in your life, if you have accomplished anything in your life, you will know that in order to do that, you'll need to do a singular thing for an extended period of time. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I had 3 kickboxing fights in one day. And for that, I had to train 2 hours a day for like 6 months, you know, and I trained even more before that. But like, I know that if I'm gonna be able to do something like that, if I want to attend it was a tournament that I did. So if I want to participate in this big tournament and have this life-changing experience of stepping into the fucking ring with another man that's trying to hurt you, I have to be able to, like, I have to up-level my skill, and in order to get to the skill level that I need to be able to fight properly, I have to put in a lot of time of singular focus, you know, when I'm not doing anything else, when I'm only focusing on martial arts, on kickboxing. So if you have like whatever accomplishment you have, if you, for example, if you have really good grades or whatever, like obviously you'll know that you need to be able to focus on one thing for an extended period of time to get any sorts of results, right? And this our ability to do that is screwed up by TikTok, because we train our brain to switch context all of the time, and to not to like we wire our brains to think in that way, you know. And this is also, by the way, why meditation is such a powerful skill. And I won't get into the specifics of meditation in this video, but you can check out my other videos. I mentioned it a lot. So it fucks up your ability to like your attention span, and this is very prevalent or it was very prevalent for me with my school studies, because although I knew that it was bullshit, I still had to do it because my parents basically told me so, and like they really wanted me to do it, and it was advantageous for me to do so. And even now it is, right? I go to high school because I'm 17 years old. I'm not 18 years old. I can't, like, I'm not legally, like, my parents can basically legally control me, and I know that school is absolutely stupid. It's absolutely, of course, it's useless unless you want to go to university for a certain career, which I don't. But I still go there and get sort of good grades and do the schoolwork, because then my parents will support me in the rest of my life with my other grind. Like, they will give me the food that I want. They will let me go to bed and like respect my sort of the times that I want to go to bed and wake up, and it'll just be a lot easier for my normal self-improvement journey and stuff like that if I go to school and do the stuff there. So even now, like it can be quite hard for me to do schoolwork because I know it's so useless, and I get the tendencies to procrastinate even now. Obviously, I have a lot more control over it now, and I basically never procrastinate my schoolwork when I need to do it, you know. But I used to do it so much when I was younger, and like, you know, you have an assignment for 30 days or 14 days, and you do it on the last day. You have an exam in a week, and you study the day before, or even in the like fucking on the bus on the way there or some shit like that. So, and that is because you can't focus, like, or first of all, because your dopamine levels are also fucked, and you can't focus on this thing because it's not stimulating. Like, reading a fucking book about neurochemistry or whatever is not stimulating, really, most of the time. And then if you try to do it, you try to study, but then your attention is fucked, like your attention span, so your mind fleets to all these different places. Your shower thoughts are contaminated. You start getting all these random irrelevant thoughts pop up, and it's basically impossible to concentrate, and you grab your phone and start scrolling, for example. I see this countless times in class, like all my sort of classmates or whatever. I don't want to associate myself with them like in that way, but I guess they are my classmates, and I see them scrolling on TikTok and like playing these stupid little video games on their phone or on the laptop constantly in class and shit. So yeah, I mean, it really fucks up your attention span too. And now for the third big thing that TikTok does to fuck all of us up. It's so, like, it's not on the tip of the iceberg like that. It's very much beneath the surface, and basically nobody knows about this, or at least, like, there's a small sub niche of people on the internet that do, like, the fucking conspiracy theorists. But outside of that, none of the people in your class or your parents or your social circle would know anything about it. So basically, TikTok is created by a company called ByteDance, like ByteDance, BYTE Dance. It's a company, it's a Chinese company that owns TikTok. Like, they create the platform, and they also own apps like CapCut as well, which is why CapCut is so integrated into TikTok. So ByteDance owns TikTok, and they are Chinese. And here's the interesting thing: ByteDance is owned by the Chinese government, by the CCP, by the fucking CCP, by the Chinese government. So they collect all the data, all the data from the fucking Americans, the Europeans, all us Westerners, right? And so they know basically what all of us are doing, and they can, I don't know what the fuck they use that for, but perhaps we'll see in the future. But then also, the big thing that happens is that they are using TikTok as a Trojan horse. So a Trojan horse is a gift that you give to someone, a gift that actually is it's a hidden weapon. So if the Trojans, it was like a village of people or some shit, some people back like thousands of years ago, and they went to Greece or Sparta or Rome. I can't even remember what it was, but they went to like Sparta or something, and they gave the Spartans a big horse, like 100-meter tall horse, as like a gift or something, because they had been enemies previously. And they put the horse inside of the big, like, capital arena, the big stadium of the Spartan city or whatever. And out from the horse came a bunch of soldiers from like a bunch of Trojan soldiers, and they killed everyone and they conquered the city. And so the moral of this story is that you can receive a gift from someone, but it actually negatively detrimenting your life. And this is what TikTok is doing. They give us this gift of this sort of so frictionless, easy reward that we get from scrolling, but in reality it's such a insidious attack on the Western world from the Chinese, or like at least that's what it seems like, because China owns it. And so, for example, I want to give you some practical examples of that showcases this. So in Western TikTok, there's a bunch of girls shaking their asses. There's a bunch of prankster, brain rot entertainment, dumb content that only fucks up the people's attention span, dopamine levels, all that kind of stuff. But in China, what do you think they show the Chinese kids? Do you think they show the Chinese kids thoughts, shaking ass or some shit like that, sexual content, or do you think they show them productive content? In China, they show the kids things like architecture, art, sport, astronomy. Like they encourage the kids to be like astronauts and shit, and come up with like new innovations and things like that. They build a nation of intellectual sort of workers. But they in the Western world, they give us TikTok that fucks all of us up through this sexualization, through this constant switch of context when you're scrolling, through all this highly dopaminergic shit. And it's an insidious attack. Like if you've ever researched like how nations fall, like there's a cycle, right? There's hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create good times. Weak men create hard times, right? And so the good times have been in the Western world, right? We have been this prosperous empire, like the American empire, since the fall of, since the world wars, really, if you know shit about history. And now we're seeing all the weak men come out of it, you know, because the good times create the weak men. So we see all of it now. And like you can just look around, you see all these fucking flabby, fat, filthy, alcoholic fucking consumers of people. You see the common man is a fucking pussy. He's a fucking little fat, overweight, or a skinny little bitch or some shit like that. Or he's just a fucking slave. He might be physically intimidating, but he's fucking stupid, and he's a slave to the system, and he just slaves his life away, or he slaves his life away, and you know, just works as a cog in the fucking machine of the Matrix. We're getting up to some more advanced shit here, so buckle up, right? And it's so fucking insidious, man. Like hard times, they really create, or good times, they really do create weak men, and we are living in those times right now. We're living in that transition. And like you've seen in the past couple of years, TikTok's rise to the top. Like the fucking boom that they had a couple of years ago, it was insane. Like before 2021, nobody knew what the fuck it was. Sure, musically, some people knew about it. I did, but it wasn't nearly as ubiquitous as it is now, as prevalent. Like, bro, I think it was about 9 months that it took TikTok to reach like 100 million users. For Instagram, it was like 3-4 years. For YouTube, it was even longer than that. The only platform that I'm aware of that reached 100 million users quicker than TikTok was like ChatGPT and Threads. Threads reached it in like 2 days, which was insane. But then ChatGPT reached it in like, or not 2 days, like a couple of, I think it was 1 month or something, I'm not sure. ChatGPT was 2 months. But apart from those two, which were just so hyper scaling, right? TikTok was the fastest growing one. And since that point, all of the other platforms have gone, like they've buckled down and doubled down on short form content. You see this in YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Twitter, that kind of stuff, you know, the endless scrolling thing. They've all implemented that in their own machines to basically subvert other people. And yeah, man, China, like they've subverted the West through this mechanism of TikTok, of giving it to us, but then engineering everything inside the app to, first of all, collect all of our data, but then also mainly to just fuck all of our minds up, really. And we haven't even touched on the sexual sort of the sexualization that TikTok has brought us. Like you see all these 13-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls doing haram shit, on the internet, which is it's absolutely disgusting, obviously. And so yeah, man, these are some of the big lessons that I've learned about TikTok over the past couple of years that have really helped me to overcome and like quit my addiction, and giving me a better understanding. So you can check out No Scroll Protocol. It's like a full-fledged big program on quitting doom scrolling, how I did it, and you can go have a look at that right now if you want to. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one, bro. See you.